I want to introduce our first speaker, who is an incredible woman that I've been able to get to know. And it's Aarti Shahani. And I've found that in getting to know her over the last couple months, and we just had a chance to meet live in person, have some coffee this morning. I don't know if you've experienced this, but she asks the kinds of questions and looks me in the eye in a way that I'm like finding my truth and feeling seen and answering from a much deeper place. And that is true power. When someone sees you and brings you out and realizes your own potential and helps unlock that. And so I just want to appreciate that, and also that that's a big part of the purpose today. So Aarti Namdev Shahani is an award-winning NPR journalist, best-selling author. This is her book that I've been reading, and I recommend it highly. Here we are. And it came from, I think, some really special and heartbreaking experience that is very worth your reading. What I've found is that this book really is a big part of her journey of who she is, and it comes out in the work she does now, which is interviewing extraordinary leaders on NPR, such as former President Barack Obama, the CEOs of Microsoft, PepsiCo, the creator of Queer Eye, and many democracy activists, Oscar and Grammy Award winners, and even the judge who sentenced her father to prison, which is a big part of what this book is about, and an incredible story. Aarti's own journey is remarkable. She grew up an undocumented immigrant in Queens, New York. She graduated from Harvard on a full scholarship and became a national voice for millions of Americans from Silicon Valley. And now this book is going to be made into a feature film by Guy Raz, so I'm very excited. You either get a chance to read it or watch it at some point. And so I'm thrilled to introduce Aarti Namdev Shahani.
We can't do a proper bear hug because we're like mic'd up and trying to like not mess our hair and all that stuff. Hi everybody, how are you? Good morning. I'm so happy to see you here. I was worried, oh, this is the end of the conference. Maybe people partied hard. Who's gonna show up? And you're here. So thank you for that. It's a full house. It's wonderful to be here with you. I am hearing a little mic feedback, so if anyone needs to interrupt me at some point, please go ahead. I wanted to say I'm Carmen Sandiego, here to teach you travel hacks. Aarti. I want to tell you a bit of my life story in a way that hopefully is useful to your life story. Back when I was in high school, I came home from a date, and my whole family, minus my father, was huddled and looking very morose. I immediately thought, oh no, they found out that I have a boyfriend. I was not allowed to date. My dad was. Dad was a shopkeeper. He ran a wholesale electronics store in Manhattan. And that day, police raided his store, and they said that he was selling watches and calculators to the Kali drug cartel, a notorious criminal group that pushed drugs on kids, that murdered a journalist in a Queens diner, and that murdered a whole lot of other people, animals. My first order reaction, if you're really to peer into it, abject shame. I was a scholarship kid at the Brearley School for Girls on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Cost a Tesla a year to attend. My parents' classmates were fancy, educated people. I already felt I was not enough. I did not need my father to be a criminal. Back then, I wanted to be a prosecutor. Dad's case became my unexpected law school. His first hearing threw me for a loop. He was brought into court with co-defendants, presumed foot soldiers of the Kali cartel, who were cleaning their dirty money with my dad's job. But he didn't know any of the guys seated next to him. Still, his defense attorney said, hey, take a guilty plea. They're offering you 6 months. You serve 6 months, you get the time done with, go back to your business, go back to your life. But if you exercise your right to trial and you lose, you could get 12 years inside. It's a trial penalty. Yes, we have a constitutional right, but if you use it, you're penalized. So my dad did what 99% of co-defendants do. He took the plea. And on the day he was supposed to return home to us, my father disappeared. He reappeared days later in an immigration detention facility to be permanently deported from the United States as a criminal alien. Deportation was a second surprise punishment. My reaction to the word deportation was visceral, like an electric current. I was like an electric circuit on fire. America is my home. Yes, we used to be undocumented, but we got our papers. Everyone was either a green card holder or naturalized citizen. Who benefits from dad being exiled? By this point, my inner prosecutor, the one who told me, you are nothing, you have to be more than your parents, she shut up. And my true self took over. I decided it was time to stop going to school to fight my father's case. And the fight was political. It wasn't in a courtroom. I had to show ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, that yes, legally you can deport Mr. Shahani, but there is an enormous universe of people who don't want to see that. And I documented how much noise his baby girl could make if they took dad away. I even got a Republican member of Congress to support us. When you have a big, bold goal, it is a very good idea to give yourself a realistic timeline. I gave myself 1 year flat, 1 year to run circles around the federal bureaucracy and win. It ended up taking 12 years. I ended up fighting alongside and with thousands of other New Yorkers in the same situation. I became a community organizer. And my campaign for my father officially came to an end when he passed the citizenship test and took the oath of office. He was allowed to become a full American. He was the first of our family to set foot on American soil and the last one to cross the finish line. In that victory, a calm washed over me. My more than decade-long anxiety attack was finally over, and my father, who had been a stranger to me all these years, the chain smoker workaholic who had a problem with my skirt lengths, he actually became my best friend. Love grows on very strange runways. And once my bestie's safety was secure, I took off. My inner prosecutor changed her tune. She had a new fixation. Okay, Aarti, you pulled that one off, but are you smart? Do you have what it takes to be something outside of your family? I had the honor of going to Harvard University on a full scholarship. That opens a lot of doors. From there, I broke into NPR. I didn't grow up listening to national public radio. It was highbrow for my family. But now, I wanted to be one of its star voices. And I wanted to tackle a topic that had not defined my coming of age. I wanted to try something totally new, outside my comfort zone, to know, hey, do you have what it takes? So I chose the wild and wacky world of Silicon Valley, epicenter of global power, 3,000 miles from home. When I arrived in San Francisco, I was detoxing from my previous life, in which, as an activist for my father and others, I felt like I always needed to have the answers. I was pushing for what was right. And I felt tense, like my fists were like this and they were tired, and I didn't know anymore what the answers were. And so I let my muscles relax, and I enjoyed simply asking questions, being curious. That is the job of a journalist. Now, curiosity does not mean deference, so let me give you an example. First thing many of you did this morning was open your Amazon app and shop. A decade ago, we weren't really exchanging that much money on the internet. It was a newer thing. And there was this platform called Kickstarter. An entrepreneur on Kickstarter had set out to raise $950,000 and ended up getting $8.5 million. Huge win. Damn, what a success. Buzzes everywhere. Look at all that money. But something did not make sense to me. So I called the entrepreneur to ask.
Would you have to give money back to your backers if you weren't able to deliver? Technically, from the Kickstarter perspective, I actually don't know the answer to that, but from a doing the right thing perspective, we will treat our backers, the best possible way.
And that's a Kickstarter policy question, I think.
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
That's Ehrman's PR agent, Tiffany Spencer, saying it's a Kickstarter policy question. So I called Kickstarter founder Yancey Strickler. If Julie Ehrman is not able to deliver the consoles, then does Kickstarter get involved?
That would be new ground. I don't know. I don't think that we would. But certainly the kind of thing you're talking about is not a bridge that has been crossed yet. Someday it will. And, I think if something did go awry, it wouldn't be my favorite day.
Wouldn't be my favorite day. Days after that interview, Kickstarter announced, in response to NPR's reporting, they are creating a brand new refund policy. 2 lessons from these. This was one of my first stories as a journalist. First, the power of shame. Some shame is good shame. It's the opposite of shameless. And hats off to the CEO. Once exposed, once asked the question in public, he didn't want to be shameless. He wanted to do the right thing. Second lesson is about intention. Did I tell the Kickstarter founder what I intended to ask before the interview? Not a chance, friends. If I had put in my email, I would like to ask you about a gaping hole in your policy, I would never have had an honest conversation. And so I invite you to ask yourself, when you're entering interactions where you need the truth, does sharing your intention open space or close space? Okay? Keep that in mind because you have the power to wield it. Often I share my intention painstakingly because I don't want to waste time. Have you ever listened to interviews where nothing is said? There's so much content in this world and you're like, okay, I feel like 2 people who just wanted to hear themselves talked, and I got nothing from it. I am committed to not doing that to folks. And so, in the spirit of genuine curiosity and genuine value add, I reached out to one of the most successful authors on planet Earth, Rosalind Weissman. She wrote Queen Bees and Wannabes, which got adopted by the Tina Fey into Mean Girls, a billion-dollar franchise. I told the best-selling author, hey, I want to talk about the ins and outs of your movie deal, the money. Creatives love to talk creativity. They don't like to talk money. Let's talk money. She agreed.
In my fantasy life, you're a multimillionaire riding horses. It's like,
that's not the case at all. The movie has made a tremendous amount of money, and I have received nothing, not a dime.
Not the answer I was expecting. A lesson in that, prepare, and then be prepared to throw out your script when life presents something more interesting. I happened to catch somebody who was boiling inside to tell her truth and looking for an opportunity to tell it. She sensed I would listen. Now, to find out how the great Tina Fey and SNL creator Lorne Michaels responded to what she had to say, listen to Art of Power, which you can find on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I shared my intention with President Barack Obama as well. He is an extraordinarily ambitious man, the first American president to call himself a feminist as well. Now, those two have never quite squared away with me, his ambition and his feminism, that he married a highly ambitious woman, and then he ran for Senate while she was raising 2 small children at home solo, pretty much. We talked about this. Now, I want you to have a listen and pay attention to the 2 questions I asked him.
No matter how enlightened the guy thinks he is, there's still a tilt in the direction of more burden falling on the woman.
and do you feel like that's a biological given, or is it because of a dynamic playing out?
No, I think it is in this. I think it's embedded in our social structures, in discrimination, in expectation, in the messages that we're sending in the media and in entertainment. And it's something that now, as a father of two daughters, I'm constantly warning them against and trying to ensure that they're not limited by.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you bring up your two daughters. Daughters make a man think a lot about the division of labor between men and women and where things fall. And I wondered, would you want your daughters to find a partner like you in terms of that division?
Well, I think that you're seeing an evolution that's more generational, right? Michelle and my relationship is different from what her parents' relationship was like. Malia and Sasha and a lot of their friends just automatically operate on the assumption that I'm not expecting to make more sacrifices than the guy or partner that I'm with, which is part of the reason why I think you're seeing this next generation marry later in life. If they marry too early, then it's natural to be more vulnerable to some of these social pressures and expectations that fall on women.
Does he want his daughters to marry a partner like him? I'm seeing a lot of no's, but he hedged it, right? This is a very seasoned person who's kind of heard it all, though he never really heard this one. And he's trying to answer it in a way that is deeply honest, but also politic, right? But it really blew my mind, this conversation. Two things I want to impart about it. One, turn your own assumptions into questions. I asked him, firstly, do you think it's a biological given? Do I think it's a biological given? No. I think most of this is social structure imposed on women by men and society, and by each other. But you don't really care what I think, you care what he thinks. So let it come out of his mouth. Another lesson, dig deep for questions whose answer may surprise you, and whose answer may surprise the person you're asking. When you're dealing with someone who's like the busy CEO at the office, really, I'm important, I got a lot of noise coming in, I've heard it all. How do you disarm that person? You ask them things that are incredibly common sense, but original. You could hear that he was thinking on his feet. Oh, okay, let me handle this one. And I will say that part of what was so meaningful for me about that interaction is I come from a very traditional patriarchal family. That interview went viral among my family across 3 continents. And they were like, wow, girl, child's big mouth being marriage liability, is talking to the alpha male of alpha males, and he's a feminist? It was beautiful. I felt the generational shift happening in that 2-minute window. By the way, you should listen to the episode Art of Power as well with Barack Obama. He dropped some amazing gems about creativity that will change your life. I want to conclude now with the single hardest interview of my life. It starts off sounding like an awkward first date.
Do you like chicken soup?
I do. I mentioned that funny thing that I don't eat carbs. Okay. So if there's noodles, I have to eat around the noodles.
Do you eat grapes?
Well, so I do wine, but not grapes.
Would you like some wine?
Only if you're having.
That was years ago. I now eat lots of carbs. I enjoy them. I highly recommend carbs. This interaction is with the judge who sentenced my father in the case that destroyed my father's life. Thanks to my NPR career, he would hear me on the radio, and we reconnected. He invited me into his private chambers and then his own home. By the way, this never happens to the children of defendants. This was a truly rare opportunity, but here we are. I showed up, not for any reason in particular, probably because I'm a glutton for awkward, and the more awkward, the better. I guess that's another lesson, embrace the awkward. I was not expecting to get his take on the criminal case, But the second I walked through the door, first words out of his mouth, "Your dad should never have taken that plea. What a mistake." According to the judge, my dad had a hand to play. A first-time arrest, a middle-aged shopkeeper family man, no priors. Didn't know the co-defendants, but he had poor guidance. What he could have done, this judge told me, was just threaten the prosecution with a trial. And from the judge's vantage point, the prosecution would not have wanted to bother.
If you're the Attorney General, they were never looking for your father. They were finding who these people were doing the drugs. That's the evil there that they're against. My sense was that your dad had no idea where the money came from, nor did they think that they want to lose the business. So I think they would be between a rock and a hard place.
A personal lesson that deeply chases me throughout my life after that interaction with the judge is, Aarti, pay attention to when fear is at the head of your table. And when fear is at the head of your table, do not make any important decisions, because fear will skew your judgments, often make you underestimate yourself, and take far less than you deserve. Huge lesson there. I never told my father about meeting with his judge. I thought it would hurt him too much. But after my father passed away and I was grieving, the judge's words strangely empowered me. I was pregnant with a story that needed to be birthed. I literally felt I could not move on with my life until this thing comes out of me. Many of you in this room have that feeling. There is something that you are birthing and you need to do it. It's the creative spirit. But my family story for so long had not been our story. It was told by others, by courts or ICE or newspapers. We were illegal or low-skilled or criminal aliens. But now, with this trusted authority figure saying it himself, I finally had the cover I needed to tell our version of the truth. I wrote up my meeting with this judge. I gave it to a literary agent, and he shared this chapter with publishers, the largest publishers on earth, and they ended up bidding for this book in a competitive auction. So I had the backing of a trusted publication and the words of this person with privilege to reshape my family's story. I had a mountain of support behind me to finally tell it like it was from our perspective. And I had finally the chance to give my father the eulogy I felt he deserved. And that, my friends, is true power.